If you keep thinking the same way, you will keep living the same life. Pause for a moment and really think about that. Most people want change. They want more freedom, more happiness, more success, more peace. But every morning they wake up with the same thoughts, repeat the same habits, react to life in the same way, and then wonder why nothing changes. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. Your life reflects your thinking, not your wishes, not your intentions, not your excuses, your thinking. Look around you. Some people see opportunity everywhere. Others see obstacles everywhere. Some people see growth in challenges. Others see reasons to quit. Some people believe the future can be better. Others believe nothing will ever change. The world they live in is the same, but their thinking creates completely different lives, and that is where transformation begins. A different life does not begin when you move to a new city. It does not begin when you get a new job. It does not begin when you earn more money. It begins when you begin to see differently. Because when you see differently, you think differently. When you think differently, you act differently. And when you act differently, your results begin to change. This is how lives transform, not overnight, but from the inside out. Many people spend years waiting for the right moment to change. They say, I'll start when I feel ready. I'll try when things are easier. I'll believe when I see results. But readiness is not what creates change. Decision creates change. The decision to think differently. The decision to stop repeating the same mental patterns. The decision to stop believing limiting thoughts that have quietly shaped your life. Because most limits are not real, they're learned. You were not born believing you were not good enough. You were not born believing success was for others. You were not born believing you should play small. Those beliefs were collected over time, from experiences, failures, criticism, comparisons, and fear. And once accepted, they begin to feel like truth. But they are not truth. They are habits of thought. And habits can be changed. Imagine what would happen if you stopped saying, I can't do this, and started asking, how can I learn this? Imagine replacing, what if I fail, with, what if I grow? Imagine choosing possibility instead of limitation. This single shift changes everything. Because the quality of your life is shaped by the quality of your thoughts. Every action begins with a thought. Every decision begins with a belief. Every result begins in the mind. If you believe nothing will work, you stop trying. If you believe improvement is possible, you keep moving forward. And forward movement, no matter how small, creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence builds courage. Courage builds change. But it all begins with one decision: to no longer think the same way. Most people underestimate how powerful this moment is, right now. The moment you question your old thinking, the moment you become aware of negative patterns, the moment you decide you want something more, this is the moment change begins. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, internally, powerfully. You begin to notice your thoughts. You begin to challenge doubts. You begin to replace fear with curiosity. You begin to choose growth over comfort. And slowly, almost invisibly, your inner world begins to shift. Then something remarkable happens. You start noticing opportunities you once ignored. You respond calmly where you once reacted emotionally. You persist where you once quit. Nothing outside has changed, but everything inside has, and that changes everything. Thinking differently does not mean pretending life is perfect. It means believing improvement is possible. It means choosing progress over perfection. It means understanding that setbacks are not the end of the story. They are part of the journey. Every strong person you admire once struggled with doubt. Every successful person once faced failure. Every confident voice was once uncertain. What separated them from the crowd was not luck. It was perspective. They refuse to see obstacles as final. They refuse to see failure as identity. They refuse to let fear define their future. They chose to think differently. And because of that, they lived differently. You have that same power. Not tomorrow, not someday, right now. Because change does not begin when the world changes. It begins when you do. And the moment you choose a new way of thinking, you begin building a new way of living. If thinking differently can change a life, why do most people never do it? Why do so many remain stuck in routines they dislike, jobs that drain them, habits that hold them back, and beliefs that limit their potential? The answer is not lack of intelligence. It is not lack of talent. It is not lack of opportunity. It is comfort, conditioning, and fear. From a young age, most of us are taught how to fit in, follow the rules, don't make mistakes, stay safe, be realistic, don't aim too high, don't stand out too much. These messages are often given with good intentions to protect us from disappointment and failure, but over time, they shape how we see ourselves and what we believe is possible. We begin to associate safety with acceptance. We begin to associate risk with danger. We begin to believe that staying inside the boundaries is the safest way to live. And without realizing it, we stop exploring our full potential. We choose comfort over growth. We choose familiarity over possibility. We choose predictability over purpose. Comfort feels safe because it is known. Growth feels uncomfortable because it is new. And the human brain is designed to avoid discomfort. It prefers patterns. It prefers routines. It prefers what is familiar, even if what is familiar is not fulfilling. This is why people stay in situations they have outgrown, not because they enjoy them, but because they fear the unknown more than they dislike the present. Fear is powerful. Fear whispers, what if you fail? What will people think? What if you're not good enough? What if you try and it doesn't work? So people delay action. They wait for certainty. They wait for confidence. They wait for guarantees. But certainty never arrives. Confidence does not come before action, it comes after, and guarantees do not exist in growth. So waiting becomes a habit. Days turn into months. Months turn into years. Dreams slowly fade into what-ifs, and potential becomes regret. Another powerful reason people stay stuck is the belief that change must be dramatic. They believe transformation requires a perfect plan, massive action, or immediate results. So when progress is slow, they assume it is not working. They quit too soon. But real change rarely arrives in dramatic moments. It arrives quietly, through small daily choices, through repeated effort, through persistence when motivation fades. Growth is not an event. It is a process. And those who understand this keep going long enough to see results. Finally, many people remain stuck because they have accepted a limited identity. They say, I'm not confident. I'm bad at this. I'm not a leader. I'm just an average person. But identity is not fixed. It is shaped by repeated behavior and reinforced by belief. You are not defined by who you were. You are shaped by what you choose to practice. You are built by what you repeatedly do. Thinking differently means refusing to accept limitations as permanent. It means understanding that growth is always possible because the brain can learn, habits can change, skills can be developed, confidence can be built, but only if you believe change is possible. Most people are not stuck because they lack ability. They are stuck because they never question the thinking that holds them in place. The moment you begin to question those patterns, you begin to loosen their grip. And once the grip loosens, movement becomes possible. Freedom becomes possible. a different life becomes possible. Once you begin to question old patterns of thinking, something powerful starts to happen. You begin to notice that the world has not changed, but your experience of it has. Situations that once felt overwhelming begin to feel manageable. Problems that once felt permanent begin to look temporary. Obstacles that once stopped you begin to look like challenges you can navigate. This is the power of thinking differently. It does not magically remove difficulty from life. It changes how you interpret difficulty, and interpretation shapes reaction. Reaction shapes action. Action shapes results. When you think differently, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" That one shift turns pain into instruction. It turns frustration into feedback. It turns setbacks into training. Instead of seeing failure as proof that you should stop, you begin to see it as proof that you are learning. Every skill is built through mistakes. Every strength is built through resistance. Every breakthrough is built through persistence. Yet most people quit at the first sign of discomfort because they interpret struggle as a signal to stop. But struggle is often a signal that growth is happening. Consider how muscles grow. They strengthen only after resistance. They develop only after strain. They rebuild stronger after stress. Growth in life works the same way. Thinking differently allows you to welcome growth instead of avoiding it. It allows you to replace fear with curiosity. Instead of thinking, "I can't handle this," you begin to think, "This is making me stronger." Instead of thinking, "This is too hard," you begin to think, "This is building my capacity." Instead of thinking, "I failed," you begin to think, "I learned." This mindset does not deny reality. It empowers you to respond to reality with strength. Because strength is not the absence of difficulty. Strength is the ability to move forward despite difficulty. Thinking differently also changes what you focus on, and focus determines emotional direction. If you focus on what is missing, you feel lack. If you focus on what is unfair, you feel resentment. If you focus on what could go wrong, you feel anxiety. But if you focus on progress, you feel momentum. If you focus on solutions, you feel empowered. If you focus on possibilities, you feel hopeful. Your mind moves in the direction of your dominant thoughts. This is why two people can face the same challenge and experience completely different emotional realities. One feels defeated, the other feels determined. One sees an ending, the other sees a beginning. The difference is perspective. Thinking differently does not require ignoring negative thoughts. It requires not surrendering to them. Negative thoughts are automatic. Empowering thoughts are intentional, and intentional thinking is a skill you can practice. You practice it by pausing before reacting. You practice it by questioning assumptions. You practice it by choosing responses rather than acting on impulse. Over time, these pauses become power, because in the space between stimulus and response lies choice, and in choice lies freedom. Thinking differently also transforms how you see yourself. Many people carry an internal narrative shaped by past mistakes and criticism. They replay old failures. They rehearse old embarrassments. They relive moments when they felt not enough. And slowly, those memories form an identity. But the past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. Thinking differently means refusing to let yesterday define tomorrow. It means recognizing that you are not your worst mistake. You are not your lowest moment. You are not the labels placed on you by others. You are a work in progress.
and progress requires permission to evolve. When you change your self-talk, you change your self-belief. When you change your self-belief, you change your behavior. And when behavior changes consistently, identity begins to transform. This is how confidence is built, not by waiting to feel ready, but by acting before you feel ready. Not by eliminating fear, but by moving forward despite fear. Not by being perfect, but by being persistent. Thinking differently also strengthens resilience. Resilience is not toughness without emotion. It is the ability to recover, adapt, and continue moving forward. When you understand that setbacks are temporary, you recover faster. When you understand that struggle builds strength, you adapt faster. When you understand that progress is not linear, you persist longer. And persistence separates those who wish from those who achieve. Every meaningful goal requires sustained effort, not bursts of motivation, not moments of inspiration, but consistent action fueled by a mindset that refuses to quit. Thinking differently allows you to stay committed when excitement fades, because excitement fades for everyone. Motivation fluctuates for everyone, but commitment carries you forward when emotions fluctuate. This is where transformation truly happens, not in moments of high energy, but in moments when continuing feels difficult. Because each time you continue anyway, you strengthen your identity. You become someone who follows through. You become someone who persists. You become someone who grows. And eventually, what once required effort becomes part of who you are. Thinking differently does not change your life overnight, but it changes the direction of your life immediately. And direction is more powerful than speed. Because when you're moving in the right direction, even small steps move you closer to the life you want. So begin noticing your thoughts. Notice what you assume. Notice what you fear. Notice what you repeat. Then ask yourself, is this thought helping me grow? Is this belief moving me forward? Is this perspective strengthening me? If the answer is no, you have the power to choose a better thought. And better thoughts create better actions. Better actions create better results. Better results create a better life. This is the power of thinking differently. It begins in the mind, but it transforms everything.
Thinking differently is powerful, but living differently requires courage. Because the moment you begin to think in new ways, you begin to see choices you once ignored. You notice time being wasted. You notice habits holding you back. You notice distractions stealing your focus. You notice patterns that keep you comfortable but prevent growth. And awareness creates a decision: stay the same or choose a different path. Most people believe transformation happens through one big decision. In reality, it happens through thousands of small ones. Waking up when the alarm rings instead of hitting snooze, choosing learning over endless scrolling, working toward a goal when comfort invites you to delay, speaking with intention instead of reacting emotionally, choosing patience when frustration rises. These small decisions seem insignificant in the moment, but repeated daily, they shape identity, and identity shapes destiny. Choosing a different path means choosing discipline over distraction. Distraction is easy. It is everywhere. It asks nothing from you. Discipline requires effort. It requires intention. It requires saying no to what is easy so you can say yes to what matters. But discipline is not punishment. It is alignment. It aligns your daily actions with your long-term vision. Without discipline, goals remain wishes. With discipline, wishes become progress. Choosing a different path also means choosing patience over instant gratification. We live in a world built for speed. Instant messages, instant entertainment, instant delivery, instant validation.
But meaningful growth is never instant. Strength takes time. Skill takes repetition. Mastery takes patience. Transformation takes consistency. When you think differently, you stop chasing quick results. You begin valuing steady progress. You understand that slow growth is still growth, and that consistency beats intensity every time. Choosing a different path means choosing purpose over approval. Many people make decisions based on how they will be perceived. They seek validation, they avoid criticism, they shape their lives to meet expectations. But approval is temporary, purpose is lasting. Approval shifts with opinions, purpose anchors your direction. When you choose purpose, you stop living for applause, you begin living with intention. This may feel uncomfortable at first because stepping away from the crowd often feels lonely. You may outgrow conversations, you may outgrow habits, you may outgrow environments that once felt familiar. Growth changes compatibility, and that is not loss, it is evolution. Choosing a different path means understanding that comfort is not always a sign of correctness. Comfort keeps you where you are, growth takes you where you want to be. Every new level of your life will require a new version of you, a more disciplined version, a more patient version, a more focused version, a more resilient version. And becoming that version requires stepping beyond what feels familiar. This does not mean abandoning joy or balance. It means becoming intentional about where your energy goes. Energy invested in growth multiplies. Energy lost to distraction disappears. Choosing a different path also requires responsibility. Blame keeps you stuck. Responsibility creates movement. When you blame circumstances, you surrender power. When you take responsibility, you reclaim it. Responsibility is not self-criticism, it is self-leadership. It is asking, what can I do next? What is within my control? What action moves me forward? This mindset builds momentum. Momentum builds belief. Belief builds resilience, and resilience keeps you moving when progress feels slow. Choosing a different path means accepting that progress is not linear. Some days will feel productive, others will feel heavy. Some days confidence will rise, others doubt will whisper. This is normal. Growth is not a straight line. It is a path with turns, pauses, and unexpected challenges. Thinking differently helps you remain steady through these fluctuations. Instead of quitting when motivation fades, you rely on commitment. Instead of doubting during difficulty, you rely on purpose. Instead of stopping when results are slow, you rely on consistency. Over time, something remarkable begins to happen. What once felt difficult becomes routine. What once required effort becomes habit. What once felt impossible becomes natural. This is how identity evolves. You do not wake up one day transformed. You build transformation daily, one decision, one action, one aligned choice at a time. And slowly, your life begins to reflect those choices. Not dramatically, not instantly, but undeniably. Because the life you experience tomorrow is shaped by the choices you make today. And each day offers a quiet opportunity to choose growth over comfort, focus over distraction, purpose over approval, and progress over perfection. This is how different lives are built, not by accident, but by intention.
If you continue choosing growth, if you continue thinking differently, if you continue making small, intentional decisions, one day you will notice something has changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but undeniably. You will notice that situations that once overwhelmed you no longer control you. You will notice that your reactions have become calmer, your focus has become sharper, your confidence has become quieter, yet stronger. You will notice that you no longer seek constant approval. You no longer fear every mistake. You no longer doubt your path with every obstacle, because something inside you has strengthened. This is what happens when you commit to thinking differently long enough. Your inner world becomes steady, and when your inner world becomes steady, your outer world begins to align.
You begin to trust yourself, not because life is perfect, but because you have proven to yourself that you can handle imperfection. Self-trust is one of the most powerful forms of confidence. It grows each time you keep a promise to yourself. It grows each time you continue when quitting feels easier. It grows each time you act despite doubt. And over time, you stop asking, "Can I do this?" You begin saying, "I will figure this out." That shift alone changes how you approach every challenge. Thinking differently also changes your relationship with time. Instead of chasing quick results, you begin building long-term value. You invest in skills, you invest in health, you invest in habits that strengthen your future. You stop rushing progress because you understand that anything meaningful takes time to build and time to maintain. A strong body is built over years. A strong mind is built through repeated resilience. A meaningful life is built through intentional living, and intentional living requires awareness. You become aware of how you spend your time. You become aware of where your energy goes. You become aware of what truly matters. This awareness simplifies your life. You stop chasing everything. You start focusing on what aligns with your purpose, because clarity creates power. When your direction is clear, decisions become easier. When decisions become easier, hesitation decreases. When hesitation decreases, momentum increases. Momentum is powerful. Small actions begin to compound. Effort begins to produce visible results. Confidence begins to reinforce itself. And what once felt like effort begins to feel like identity. You are no longer forcing discipline. You are no longer forcing focus. You are no longer forcing growth. You are living it. This is how a life that stands out is built, not through perfection, but through consistency, not through talent alone, but through persistence, not through luck, but through aligned action repeated over time. You begin to realize something important. You were never meant to live on autopilot. You were never meant to shrink your potential to fit comfort. You were never meant to live according to fear. You were meant to grow, to evolve, to expand into your fullest potential. And when you commit to thinking differently, you begin to break invisible limits. Limits placed by fear, limits reinforced by doubt, limits accepted without question. You begin to see that many barriers were never real. They were beliefs waiting to be challenged, and once challenged, they begin to lose power. This does not mean life becomes free of difficulty. Challenges will still appear, unexpected setbacks will still occur, moments of uncertainty will still arise, but you will face them differently, with steadiness instead of panic, with resilience instead of defeat, with perspective instead of fear. Because you understand that challenges are not interruptions to growth, they are part of it. And this understanding gives you strength, the strength to continue, the strength to adapt, the strength to remain committed to the person you are becoming. Over time, others may begin to notice the change in you. They may ask what changed. They may wonder how you became more focused, more calm, more confident. The answer is simple. You chose to think differently, and you stayed committed to that choice. Because transformation is not a single moment. It is a series of decisions honored daily. It is showing up when motivation fades. It is continuing when progress feels slow. It is believing in growth even when results are not yet visible. And eventually, the life you once imagined begins to feel real. Not perfect, but meaningful. Not effortless, but fulfilling. Not instant, but earned. And you realize that a different life was never out of reach. It was waiting on the other side of a different way of thinking. So if you want a life that stands out, continue. Continue choosing growth. Continue choosing purpose. Continue choosing progress over comfort. Because each day you do, you move further from the life you settled for and closer to the life you were meant to live. Think different. Live different. Become the person your future is waiting for.